Hey everybody, Chris Samartage here, Brotherhood of Light Show Current YouTube channel. So we're going to continue with our series on psychedelic music of 1968. And this show is going to have the two most famous bands of 1968 that took the blues into psychedelia. So let me get the show going here. I'm going to do my screen share. Screen share, here we go. And there we go. We got it. Okay, so it's Cream. Wheels of Fire is our feature album, but we're going to hit their whole catalog. And we got Jimi Hendrix, Electric Ladyland, and we're going to really journey into Electric Ladyland and the studio that they recorded it in and the engineers and all that sort of stuff. We're going to go that way with this record. So here's our cover. And okay, we're going to hit the next slide. There we go. All right. So what we got here is the original blues artist from 50s and 60s. And actually, Robert Johnson was from before that. We got Robert Johnson. I'm leaving my laser pointer going here. I think that would help. Laser pointer. Okay. So here we go. We got Robert Johnson. We got B.B. King, Freddie King, Muddy Waters, and we've got John Lee Hooker down here. So anyway, we're going to hit first the Yardbirds. And Eric Clapton right here was in the Yardbirds. So he quit the Yardbirds to go over to John Mayall Bluesbreaker. And he wanted to do a complete, or they wanted to do a complete blues album, which they did. And they covered these artists above here and their music and other artists also. And this is called the Beano because he's reading a Beano comic. That's Eric Clapton right there. And from there, he went on to Cream. Okay, we'll get into that in a second. But meanwhile, Jimi Hendrix was actually played the blues and was in the Chitlin circuit. And he was out with like Wilson Pickett, that's this guy right here, and also Curtis Knight. And so he was actually touring around the South and playing in the Northeast and all that stuff with these black bands in the Chitlin circuit. So he actually was more than influenced by it. He actually lived it. So he's going to be our other artist today, and we're going to hit Electric Ladyland, and we're going to do Cream first, and then we're going to have Hendrix the second half of the show. So if you're a Hendrix fan, stick around for the second half of the show. You want to see Hendrix stuff. All right, so we're going to move on to Cream here, and here we go. So we got Fresh Cream over here. That was our first album. It came out in 1966. And it has a song called I'm So Glad, which was kind of the hit off the record. And so Hendrix had heard that album and he really wanted to meet Eric Clapton and play with Eric Clapton. And so in 66, he came over to England and he actually jammed with Cream. And they were he kind of blew him away. Okay, that's as the story goes. He just blew Eric away with his massive guitar style. So this is the next album they did, Disraeli Gears. It came out in 67, and they actually tried to write a song like a Jimi Hendrix song, according to Cream, and it's called Sunshine of Your Love. Now, I'm going to get into who the guys are in the band right now. So Eric Clapton came from the Bluesbreaker, and he was like a blues guitarist, okay? But he ended up using Marshall amps and Gibson guitars, and he was able to get this incredible volume, and he started recording in the studio with high volume, and he was able to get this aggressive blues rock sound instead of just traditional blues like on the other record. Now, Ginger Baker is a drummer, the middle guy here, and he absolutely had this incredible orchestral sound of just drum fill in between the beats. I mean, it wasn't just like a traditional 4/4 drummer. It was like this orchestra going on behind this rock music. And then you had Jack Bruce. And Jack Bruce was the bass player. He was a great bass player and a great singer and a great songwriter. So what you had is a power trio. Okay, it's three guys. It's all contained into one band. Now, because of the great songs, the great vocalists, the incredible drumming, and this aggressive guitar player, it was early psychedelic music. All right. The other thing that, and so this other song, Tales of Brave Ulysses, the other thing that Eric did, that was another big hit off the record, or hit, FM hit. He started playing wah wah, and wah wah had just been introduced to the guitar world. And so that kind of made it a little different than just standard blues. It was like psychedelic sounding. And then this Swallow Bar song is really cool too. I'm just going to mention those three songs on this record because I really like them. So the quote is, the greatest power trio in the history ever. That's from an interview I heard of another guy, but I had to get that quote. I thought it was pretty cool. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, but we're going to talk about power trios. Okay. So here's Eric Clapton's guitar, his psychedelic SG Gibson, and was painted by an artist. And I put my light show in here, and I just thought it would be a good montage. So what a power trio is, three contained guys. It's not like Led Zeppelin had four guys. A singer's a separate guy, played harmonica or whatever. But, you know, it was still a power trio if you took away the singer, but it's not with four guys. It's only a three-man band. So the next big power trio after Cream, and they're known as the most famous power trio, was Grand Funk Railroad. And all three of those guys sang. And then ZZ Top is also a power trio. It's three guys once again, and they stayed that way for years. And then the other major power trio that came out in the 70s was Rush, and they kind of turned into a prog power trio. This really high-pitched vocalist. And then there was another band called Triumph that was a power trio also from Canada. So I mean, I'm trying to think of other ones, but those are basically the ones, but Cream is the top of the crop here. So the next record that came out was this one. It's called Cream Wheels of Fire. And this album is a double album. Okay. It's half studio and half live. And it's, great psychedelic cover. And this came out in 1968. And so this album hit number 4 on the charts. And actually it hit number 1, excuse me. So this hit number 1. These guys were the number 1 album seller in the world, and in a lot of charts like England and Australia. I mean, they were big, right? So then the song White Room, okay, let me see where that is here. White Room was number 5 on a singles chart. And so it was really funny because, back then there's a lot of AM radio, and FM radio just had introduced it. They invented it in the late 50s, and it was kind of, not very popular. Classical stations had FM because they wanted the fidelity. But now that rock music was popular and there were stereo recordings, wanted to get FM broadcasted in stereo. But anyway, so we heard a lot of AM, the radio you'd see in the kitchen of people's homes or in the cars were AM. So you would hear like White Room, this totally psychedelic rock song, or like this Jimi Hendrix song that we're going to get into next, which is All Along the Watchtower, playing on AM. And then you'd hear like the Archies' Sugar Sugar, which is just this totally gross pop song, just totally cotton candy. And so it was jarring, but the fact that psychedelic music was on AM radio was amazing, but then FM just immediately took over. So we're going to get into, here's a picture of Cream at this time period. There's Eric Clapton on the left. And Ginger Baker was known for his speedy drum playing. And then Jack Bruce. like to hang out in the pub. So this album here, we're going to get to the album and we're going to talk about the live part of it. So here's the actual poster where they played in San Francisco they played on the 7th at Fillmore. And then on the 8th, 9th, and 10th, they played over at Winterland, which is a 5,000 seat venue. So since they had a number one album, they were a big draw. They could fill a place like that. And that bands hadn't been playing in like basketball stadiums at this point, besides the Beatles. And so here's the songs. You got White Room, which was that hit. And then this other song, Politicians, really great. And now we go to the live. Okay, so then Crossroads is a Robert Johnson song. He's the first guy I showed in the Blues Guys. And Clapton sang that and played it. And then Leonard Skinner made it famous later of their live album. So this is recorded live at Winterland on the 10th. And then if you listen to Spoonful, it's 16 minutes and 43 seconds. And when you hear that record, it sounds exactly like what it sounded like in Winterland when I was there going to these shows back when I was in high school. And actually Beyond Winterland stayed open for about 15 years. And then Train Time is this harmonica thing that I'm not too impressed with. And then Toad is like Ginger Baker's 12-minute drum solo. So, but this is recorded at Winterland. So we're going to get to those pictures next. Okay, so here they are recording in the studio, and they did an Atlantic studio in New York City. Both these albums I showed you, and there they are. And he's not using the psychedelic guitar. He's using a Les Paul, but over here he's using the psychedelic guitar, the SG. And then there he is playing at Winterland with the SG. And this is Winterland right here, this big building in San Francisco. It was like an ice folly place and had boxing and stuff like that in it. And it's right across the street from the Fillmore. And then here they are playing probably on television or something. And he's playing this other Gibson that he had left over from the Yardbirds. But we're going to go to the Winterland stuff here. So this is a bootleg right here of Winterland or whatever, a record I found on the internet. I don't know if it's a bootleg or not, but it's Winterland. It's 1968. And so these are shots of them actually playing. This is Glenn McKay's light show in here. And you can see the microphones. There they are on these booms right here recording. And when you look at all the live stuff that Cream ever did, if you go in there, it's all from these two particular shows, the Winterland shows and that Fillmore show. All their live recording, which comes out in other albums, and there's a couple live albums, are all from this particular session right here. And you can see right here, Jim Marshall, the famous photographer, who's took that picture of Jimi Hendrix behind me, is shooting right there. It's at Winterland, and then you can see him here. You can see those microphones, and there's another band playing set up behind them because they rotated bands throughout the shows, and that could probably be James Cotton, who played there that night with him. James Cotton Blues Band, who's another Chicago blues band. And we're going to go to the next Cream. Here we go. So we've got Goodbye Cream, and there's a lot of live tracks on it from that same recording, and they just kind of patched it together. Here's the band again. Here's another. They're playing at Winterland with Loading Zone and Big Black, whoever that is. And they did this song Badge right here, which it sounds more like Clapton. It's a Clapton song. It sounds more like Derek and the Dominoes guitar style than the Cream sound. Now here's the guitars again. Here is the painted SG, and here's the Fender 6-string bass. And Jack played it for a while, but he didn't like it because the paint on the neck was kind of like sticky and made it so he couldn't move his hands smoothly on the neck. Probably it was hand painted, But Clapton, as you saw in the other pictures, the guitar had all this different colors on the back of the neck. It didn't seem to bother him. He played it for a long time. And then Todd Rundgren got the guitar from him, and he played it for a while. And then apparently the guitar didn't really sound that great at that point. So he ended up, whatever, it's in some museum somewhere now. And he ended up getting a reissue, it looks like it. And he played it on this Prague tour that he did recently, or Utopia tour he did. So I'm going to suggest here. So here's all the records that they did, which is pretty amazing that they didn't really do that many, because they were like the biggest thing going. Cream was just massive, especially on the FM radio. So there's a box set you can get. I was listening to the box set and collection, and it was Fresh Cream, Disraeli Gears, Wheels, and Goodbye. Those four, but there might be one of all six of these. Now, the other thing is this Live Cream 2 is Warren Haynes, I work with the Allman Brothers and Government Mule, was telling me that he had this album when he grew up, and he listened to it a lot, and that was his Cream influence. And let's see, it's White Room, Politician, Tales of Brazy, Sunshine of Your Love, and Steppin' Out. So he was influenced by this record. And then when him and Woody and Matt Apps decided to put together a band, three of those guys, they had this concept of doing a power trio like Cream. So the influence of these guys influenced Government Mule, who's now out. And they did 3 records as a power trio. And then Woody ended up dying tragically, and they got a keyboard player. So now they're 4 guys. So no longer a power trio, but that was a sort of story behind that. So now we're going to go to the next shot here. Now we're getting to Hendrix. Okay, here we are. So this is a infamous Electric Ladyland album, or famous Electric Ladyland album. This is also a double album. So back in the day, everybody had these funky turntables, and you could stack your records on them. So what we would do is we'd put, one side of Electric Ladyland, one side of Wheels of Fire, one side Electric Wheels of Fire. And so you'd have 4 of them, and you just start the first one and they drop and play. And then you just flip the whole bunch and play all 4 of them again. So you could actually get like 3 hours of music out of these 2 records. And, with the old turntables, and we just, would smoke some weed or whatever and just listen to these records back in 68. I mean, it was just, they were just groundbreaking psychedelic jamming. We never heard anything like it. A lot of the stuff I've hit on my show all came out after these records. These, Experience and, well, these were in 68, and but these 2 were #1 selling albums. And it was amazing that psychedelic records like this, especially this one, hit that high on the charts. So we're going to hit this next one here. So this here is a big, massive bronze statue that's in Central Park in New York City. And it's really big. If you can see now, Jimmy's sitting in, it's Alice in Wonderland is the theme. And Jimmy's actually sitting in Alice. And so that's how big it is. The thing's like 12 feet tall and, 25 feet wide or something. And the whole band's sitting up on this mushroom. And Linda Eastman or Linda McCartney shot this picture. And this is the cover of the box set that you can buy now that came out 50-year anniversary of Electric Ladyland, which was 2 years ago. Actually, it was 3 years ago now. It was in 2018. So now there's a controversy cover on the original European one. I'm going to show it right now, and I'm going to go over the songs. And so here we go. Now, this was some idea. A guy at the record company thought this was a great idea, and they shot this, and Jimmy hated it, and you'll see in the next shot. So there's Jimmy. It's whatever, 20 women naked holding Electric Ladyland record, and the picture that Jimmy's holding is the gatefold of the album. that he's holding, and he's obviously not happy with it at all. And this is one of the outtake shots. And so this is the MCA later release that came out in 2000, 1994. Okay. But it has great, you can see the song's really good on it. That's why I picked this piece of artwork. So you got The Gods Made Love, Have You Ever Been Experienced, where he does his high pitched vocals, Crosstown Traffic, which was made number 52 on the charts. Okay, Voodoo Child, the 16-minute version is a blues version with Steve Winwood from Traffic and Jack Cassidy from Jefferson Airplane, and Mitch Mitchell on drums. Now, Jimmy's drummer is also one of the greatest drummers. He's like a jazz rock drummer, Mitch Mitchell, and he just lucked into getting him, and it was just a perfect fit for this incredible psychedelic guitar player to have this touch drummer that could do all these riffs and not just stay on that simple 4/4 beat, but somehow keep the beat and do really, really complicated stuff. So it was great. And so you hear him on here, and then A Little Miss Strange, Long Hot Summer Nights, Let the Good Times Roll, Gypsy Eyes, which is pretty trippy, Burning of the Midnight Lamp, okay, Rainy Day Dream Away, which is really cool with the saxophone. And then you've got 1983, Merman, I Should Turn to Be, and then Moon Turns the Tide, which is the same song. So it's like 14 minutes of just massive psychedelic studio engineering, just amazing tracking and vocals and overdubbing and panning stereo, and just it's like you're taking a complete trip with Jimi Hendrix underwater and around the world. House Burning Down, which has one of the most interesting intros ever, a guitar sound, I mean, totally unique. And Hendrix he used the wah-wahs, and he used the fuzz boxes that were custom made for him. So he had a lot of gadgets that had just come out, and he was always trying to get a new sound and a new thing going. So he was totally an innovator with all these, pedal that now everybody uses a million pedals. If you see a rock show, you see like a guy with a pedal board with like 10 different pedals. Hendrix had like 3 of them, but and some of them were custom made just for him. And then All Along the Watchtower, and then another version of Voodoo Child, which is more of a hard rock version and was kind of an FM hit. And then All Along the Watchtower hit number 20, and that's a Bob Dylan song. So we're going to get to that song right now, where it was recorded. Here we go. So it was recorded in Olympic Studio. And so he came back in 1967 from his tour, and he ended up going back in the studio and recording a few things. And one of them was All Along the Watchtower with Dave Mason on acoustic guitar. And then, so here he is in the studio, and with Eddie Kramer, and Eddie Kramer's got short hair. Now this is Olympic Studio, and this is a picture of Jimmy Page, and you can see how big the studio is, how they're separating. They have one Marshall amp in here, a bass rig, John Bonham's drums, and the keyboard. So that's how Led Zeppelin recorded their records. And Kramer engineered the Led Zeppelin stuff. I don't know if he engineered it, but he definitely took the tapes and engineered it from there, helped him produce it. And now here's Jimmy at the board mixing, and here he is recording in Olympic Studio. But I thought they might have recorded more songs than that, but it seems from the archive, the Experience archive, it says they only recorded that song from this album in that studio. And then they went to New York, to the record plant, okay? So here we are in the record plant, and here they are recording and mixing, and this is the outside of the building, the record plant, and there's Jimmy in the record plant recording, and there he is, I guess, working on something over here. I have no idea what this small machine is, but he's very concentrated. And there he is with Eddie Kramer again. And here is Todd Rundgren on guitar back here, and somebody on bass, which is probably Mitch Mitchell, and Noel Redding. And then I don't know who this guy on the piano is. And there's Jimmy listening, or obviously mixing something on this machine right here. So all these other songs were done at this particular studio in New York. And he would just come in late at night. He spent a massive time in here. Okay, so here he is recording, sitting in a chair. And here he is with Buddy Miles. And they did, anyway, I can't remember the song they did, but Buddy Miles played drums on one song with him on Electric Ladyland. And then, so here he is recording again in there with headphones on. And here's the engineering room and the board in the record plant in New York City. Okay, now here's the next set. And I believe this is Voodoo Child that he's recording. I saw captions that claim this particular clothes he was wearing and that he's recording was Voodoo Child when he jammed with Steve Winwood and Jack Cassidy. But I could be wrong. He also recorded 1983 in there. And but the record plant here on the right, famous record plant in Sausalito, is different than the record plant in New York. And that's where Rumors was recorded by Fleetwood Mac and a number of other, many albums, even Smashing Pumpkins. Now here is the actual picture of Electric Ladyland from the gatefold. And that was the European version, which Hendrix hated, but that's what they released. So if you bought a European version, you got that. This is the gatefold, or part of it, from the American version. So then people say, oh, well, Electric Ladyland Studios. No, it's Electric Lady Studios that Jimmy built after he had the success of this record. So he wanted his own studio. So he ended up buying a nightclub and they put a studio in it. And it ended up being, it's a premier studio. It's open still to this day, 50 years later, or 2 years later. And here it is. And this is the main recording room. And it's got all the lights on, and it's just beautiful. And you can see they've got some drum kits and Hammond B organ and piano and a Leslie speaker, and then the engineering booth over here. And it's just a gorgeous studio. And a lot of music has been made in there over the years. And so the next picture here is the front door of Electric Lady in the Village. And there is Jimmy and Billy Cox recording with Mitch Mitchell on drums back there. And you can see that it's not done yet. The walls have like insulation in them. They're not drywalled yet, or whatever surface they put on them. But he recorded in there for 6 months or so, or maybe 9 months. And here is a finished room, main engineering room. And this is the modern day. You can see the modern day chairs. You can see the computer. But there's Jimmy recording in there with still the insulated walls, and Billy Cox. And Billy Cox did not record with him at all at the record plant. So this is definitely, and there's the big Marshall. He's using a Marshall in the recording studio, which is pretty crazy, a double stack. But that's what he used. And all these guys use these Marshalls that had all this volume and distortion that they could do so much with. So it's a beautiful studio. And here's a picture of Jimmy and Kramer mixing. And now Kramer's got long hair. He's moved to New York. And here they are. Jimmy's proud of his studio. And so, it's pretty historic. So the next shot is Eddie Kramer with his mixing board, which is pretty amazing. And then the actual studio itself, the guitars lined up and everything, the Marshall amp, the Fender, a couple baby grand pianos. I don't know whose session this is. And there's Jimmy checking out Electric Ladyland, loving it. And so he actually got to, it was finished, and he had a grand opening party. Okay. Uh, and, everybody from New York and all the press was there. And he had already recorded a bunch of stuff in there, but it was finally finished. And then right after that very same night, he left and went right to the airport and flew to Europe and played the Isle of Wight a couple days later. So, and then he went on that tour, which lasted for like a week and a half after that. And then he went to London, and he had the tragic death that happened. And it was just a tragedy. He really didn't, he got to see it finished. So that was cool. So here we're going to kind of get into that right now. So here he is in the studio, and, and this is like a separate guitar room, obviously, like a mini room somewhere in there, probably for isolation guitar. I don't know. And then these are the two records that he ended up recording in that studio, which is Cry of Love, which is this one, and then Rainbow Bridge, soundtrack for Rainbow Bridge. And these are great albums. You should get them. I talked about them on my other show about Hendrix, the essential albums. But he actually made these albums and produced them himself with Kramer in that studio. And this is the last show he ever played in Germany. Right there. That's a shot of him playing. And it's really a sin. And now we're going to go back to the studio. And there it is. You can see how beautiful it is. This has got the full rig. It's got a Marshall amp back here. It's got a drum kit. It's got a baby grand piano. It's got a Hammond B with a Leslie speaker. And it's got a couple other keyboards back in here. And so, I mean, this is fully set up. There's enough microphones for horns and everything. Looks like the drums are already mic'd. So this baby, I mean, you see what a beautiful studio it is, and why it's still around today. So now I'm going to go into a little story of my own. And so I was touring with the Allman Brothers in 1994. We did this Horde tour, and we were out with Blues Traveler, Allman Brothers, Sheryl Crow, Dave Matthews, Big Head Todd. And we were on tour. We toured the whole United States. We're doing this Horde festival. And a lot of times this Jimi Hendrix semi that you see right here was part of the tour package. And so they would pull in, if they could fit into the concourse of these big amphitheaters, and then they'd set it up, and they'd pull a merch table out, and then they'd put a staircase down, and there was like an exhibit. You could go in and listen to music and see pictures of Jimmy. And it actually eventually went to Woodstock 94, which was a 25-year anniversary of Woodstock, which was a big concert festival. We actually played that. So this thing, they really designed it to go to that event for 3 days, but it went on the whole Horde tour with us. And the really cool part about it was, when we were driving down the road in the bus, I would sit in the jump seat with the driver a lot. And we'd be following this thing, and this big giant picture of Jimmy's face on the back. I'd be driving down the highway, looking at Jimi Hendrix, following it down the road. And we toured all summer. So it was a constant thing that I saw. It just was, and I love Jimi Hendrix. So it was really cool for me to sort of be following Jimi Hendrix down the highway. Okay, now we're going to get into the final slide here. So there's Jimmy. And now this is the box set that he's holding right there, and of Electric Ladyland. And then this thing came out the 50-year anniversary. So Jimi Hendrix would have been 75 years old when this thing came out. But, you think, okay, so this is a picture of him in 1968 when he released the record. So do you think that he would have thought that this thing would be still selling in the box set 50 years later when he was 75 years old, if he lived that long? It's pretty amazing. So I just put that together. It's kind of like, to him. And I have a copy of it. It's great. And it's got a DVD of kind of the making of Electric Ladyland, which is worth it. And then it's got another Live at the Hollywood Bowl disc. I have the CDs, not the vinyl. It's got this big booklet with a lot of his writing and pictures. So anyway, God, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Um, so I'm going to go back to myself here and stop screen share. Here we go. So anyway, that was a great show. All you Jimi Hendrix enthusiasts, hope you enjoyed it. And Cream, these two bands were just the top, and they just changed everything for everybody. And I think they're got so much to do with, you know, music coming from the blues and turning into psychedelic, into progressive rock, into, you know, AM and FM hits that we've had for the past 50 years, and bands have tried to mimic those sounds. And still, I mean, the Cream, I don't think stands as much test of time as Hendrix. Hendrix is still, to me, more advanced than anybody. I mean, his music to me is the best of anybody still to this day. Anyway, I'm going to sign off, guys. Enjoy the show, and we'll see you next week. And I think I'm going to do a Johnny Winter show. Okay.